Here's a question, and this is a tricky one because I've heard people say things like we have to get rid of stereotypes, and I completely disagree with that because we would function, and I just don't mean racial stereotypes. The idea that you can take past experience and generalize to the future with a higher degree of probability than simply randomness. When I go into a house and I see a 4-legged thing with a seat, but I've never seen that shape before, I go, oh, that's a chair. You know what I mean? And so these stereotypes exist in a lot of different ways, but I hear people saying that we have to throw them away. Would you change your mind if it turned out that all 3 of these particular locations he had confirmation were doing prostitution, and he did not just pick 3 random Asian massage parlors, that he picked 3 that he had firsthand knowledge were actually doing prostitution?
I would still question why he would only ask about these like Asian massage parlors and why not other maybe straight up brothels.
Sure. So what I would say is there was probably a guy within the last 6 months who did that and didn't make the news. And he went to a brothel and shot a white woman or a black woman or whatever. And this is the thing, like all over America with 300 million people, surges to the front. So we have an example. So if you take the larger thing, what you might see is that, yeah, there are things that we just don't get made aware of. Are those similarly going to be racially motivated?
The ones that we're not aware of?
So let's say that there's a guy that doesn't make the news, that goes and kills 3 white prostitutes, which I would be willing to bet has happened within the last 12 months.
Sure.
And maybe he was of a different racial background. That is not going to surge to the top of the news. Would that one therefore be racially motivated if he didn't kill? This is a hypothetical situation.
There's no racial assumption going on there. Like he just dislikes all, like maybe this guy dislikes all sex workers, but I'm saying he targeted Asian massage parlors because there's a link in his head that says, you know, like migrant Asian women are, you know, working as masseuses are sex workers, and that's why. But this guy who hypothetically kills, I guess like 3.
What if he thinks that poor white women from trailer parks are sex workers?
Like all of them?
No, he doesn't think all of them. The other guy doesn't think that all Asian women are sex workers.
All Asian women who work at massage parlors.
I bet you he doesn't.
Or maybe
think
not
that.
all of them, but
I bet you he doesn't think
a good handful of them. Like he walks into a Asian masseuse parlor and assumes that there is sex work going on. Mm-hmm. And you're saying if this guy...
Well, we don't know. So I guess what I'm saying, but the thing is, look, there's a world in which this guy is definitely racially motivated. There's a world and a scheme where that's the case. I'm just saying that I don't know, and I'm surprised to hear you and Trevor Noah say that you feel strongly convinced of it, given what to me seems like a lack of data, and then in situations with different racial constructs, hesitate to make that leap.
Wait, what do you mean?
So like in the Duke lacrosse thing, for her, it's totally possible that woman thought rich, white Duke people and said, I'm going to target the White House, you know, with they're lacrosse players, you know, and the majority white kids and they go to Duke. For that not to be racially motivated, but for this attack to be, both with the lack of knowledge that we have around them, seems inconsistent to me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I could say that it was racially motivated then.
Got it. So you would sooner...
Like if she, based on that context, if she was I don't know, I assume if she was targeting like affluent people, she was lower class. Mm-hmm. And she saw like these rich white guys at Duke. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm going to target them because they're rich white guys, then I would say, yeah, that's racially motivated.
Yeah, this is interesting to me. This is where I can't, and I know that I'm not convincing you. You don't have to be. I hear rich, and I go, she wants the rich people.
Yeah, you know? I agree with that too.
I think she would have done it to black people, and I think this guy, I don't know anything about him particularly, might have killed, and did. I mean, shot a Latin guy in the head, shot a white woman, shot. Mm-hmm. To me, what's interesting, I guess, nowadays is when you give these people belongs to this group. They are in massage parlors. They are lacrosse students. They are rich. They are this. The trait that surges to the front in everybody's mind is skin color, like racial background. And that to me is not as good of an explanation as, depending on the situation, other groups that they belong to. And I think, quite frankly, makes me feel, I don't know, nervous.
I'm not saying that this guy definitely did it only because they were Asian. I'm just saying that I think that there is an inextricable link between how people perceive Asian masseuses and sex work in America. And therefore, I think that it would be highly unlikely to say that there wasn't some kind of bias going on in his head.
Got it. But
that
possible.
he already had.
But possible.
Sure, it's possible that he maybe just like lived under a rock.
Well, no, not lived under a rock, but you know, Ted Bundy, I think all of his victims were white, I believe. And there wasn't just 6 of them. There was like 20 something of them, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, why did he only target white women? Was it because he hated white women? Was it because they were the easiest targets? Was it because he had a subconscious bias that white women were the weakest women? Like, we don't know.
That sorority girls were less likely to scream, or
And I think,
well, my point being that
we wouldn't leap to saying that that Ted Bundy hated white people.
But that's because I don't think that there's like, I don't think that's like a storyline in like American society that, you know, that white women are somehow like weaker than women of other races or whatever.
I think there might be.
And therefore, I mean, sure, if there might be, and maybe Ted Bundy held that view, but I don't think it's as widely held as something like Asian sex workers.
I don't think it's as widely held as... So Justin is Asian. That's why we are deferring to him a lot on this. People don't know that. Yeah. I've had people listen in and they just think Justin is some random white dude. So Justin is Asian, which is why we're trying to get his perspective on this. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that people actually think there aren't white prostitutes and black prostitutes and Latina prostitutes.
No, I'm not saying there aren't.
Yeah. To me, I don't think Asians are like disproportionately linked.
Even massage parlors. I mean, I do know that there's a connection there, but I don't know. With all of this, and this is the other thing, is that the assumption that stereotypes are widely held, therefore individually held, is I think a leap. You know what I mean? Just to say that like, oh, a lot of people feel this way, therefore this particular guy felt this way.
But I mean, I would acknowledge that I would walk into an all Asian massage parlor that looks kind of dingy, and I would question if it was a prostitution front.
I don't, man, because I go to these places all the freaking time. Man. I go exclusively to these Asian foot spas because they're cheap, and it has never occurred to me that they would do it.
And no one's ever offered.
No one's ever.
I've been to a lot of Asian spas. No one has ever offered to jerk me off or have sex with me. So.
Ever in my life at any spa, by the way. And I've gotten massages in a lot of places. So again, that's just my own personal thing. But when I go there, I have a different stereotype. What is my stereotype? That they're not going to speak English, that they're probably not very well trained, but they'll do a good job on your feet, and that the price will be really cheap and they'll be very friendly.
So yeah, that's interesting use of the word stereotype, because that's not based on something you saw on TV. That's based on the fact that you've probably gotten $120 massages over the last couple years.
Oh, way more than that. I go all the time.
Yeah. So is that a stereotype?
Yes.
Like what? So
yes.
So it's based on your own experience, not based on what you've seen on TV.
So we should define stereotype.
You say, most of the time, if you go to an all Asian massage parlor where even the paperwork or whatever is going to be in both Asian and English, then not a lot of people speak English. That's your experience from 2,000 times going to these places.
The front desk person will speak some, but it will be with a heavy accent. That the person who does you will speak almost none. And if you say soft, you'll have to use 3 synonyms to try to communicate, and maybe hand gestures.
Yeah. Is that a stereotype?
Yes, it's a stereotype. Now, here's the thing.
Justin,
here's the
do you think it's a stereotype?
Of course it's a stereotype.
Well, I'm just trying to define what a stereotype is.
Do you think that's
sure.
Stereotype is any time that you take a past experience and abstract from that some of the criteria that were in it and use it to inform future decisions, behavior, and thought patterns. And so that's what I do. Now, the problem with stereotypes is if I go in there and I start speaking very slowly to the person at the front desk, which I do, and then she goes, "Oh yeah, what time are you thinking?" And then I continue, in spite of new evidence, to treat this person like they can't understand English spoken at the pace that I'm used to speaking it. And I think this is generally the problem. We were talked about stereotypes, and of course people don't like racial profiling. Like, that's a big issue. But if there was a murder and it was a bloody murder, you would not see cops pulling over grandmothers or children or a lot of well-to-do looking women. They would go for men that looked our age. And then within that, they would look for lower class men. They would look for men that looked rumpled.
They'd also look for the husband or the boyfriend, because that's who does the murder. That's who does the murder all the time.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that counts as a stereotype, but they would absolutely go, all right, where's the guy that was having sex with her?
Yes. And so this is a deviation from what we were talking about, but the idea that we should throw out stereotypes, it would grind the world to a halt. we would become it would make us unable to learn from past experiences. Of course, there's problems with stereotypes when they're held too firmly. And I think that's what we're talking about with everything is, I don't know, we always say like slow down, try to make slower.
Well, I also think I do think people conflate things because there was this, I forget if it's a study or just an anecdote, but the idea that, someone will, a large black man in a tank top will come walking down the sidewalk late at night and women will cross to the other side of the road and people go, oh, that's racism.
Yeah.
If a 240-pound yoked white guy with a shaved head, a tattoo, and a tank top is walking down the street, that same woman is going to cross the street. So there is a stereotype occurring, but I don't know that it's a racial stereotype. It might be. It also might be a jacked guy with a tattoo and a tank top stereotype. And maybe it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the question is like, what feature are you going to make your narrative about? Does that make sense?
That's, I guess, what I'm saying is that racism influences things. It influences crime. It influences prejudice. It, of course, influences all of these things. What I am nervous about in the world that I see is it is the immediate first cause in so many explanations for why things are the way that they are. And we've talked about it, that it's, race, sex, and sexual orientation, or race, gender, and sexual orientation, surge to the top without what I would consider necessary due diligence in a lot of cases. And to me, we talked about it. If you get the causes for problems wrong, you will fuck up the solutions and potentially make things worse. We can come back to this if you have more that you want to do, but let's hop.
Sure. And I guess the last thing I would say is it still could be that this guy absolutely hates Asians.
Yeah.
We're not saying that that's not the case.
I'm not even saying that he particularly hates Asians. I'm just saying that that link is in his head, and therefore it would be a motivator for him to target specifically Asian massage parlors.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that he even hates Asians. I'm just saying that because that stereotype exists and I think is widely held, maybe not by everybody as evidenced by Charlie, but I think it's widely enough held for me to just be able to say that that was most likely a thought that went through his mind when he thought to himself, like, what are the areas of sexual temptation in my life?
Mm-hmm. What? No, go ahead.
Yeah, regardless of if he had been offered sex at these parlors or not.
Yeah, I see two totally viable explanations. One would be that he went to these massage parlors because they were Asian and because he thought that Asian people were sex workers. And that's why he went there in the first place, was because he was looking to have sex with a prostitute. Then because he's Christian, he hated himself for it. And so he killed them. And it was motivated by that link in his head of Asian people being sex workers at massage parlors. And then another one I could understand is he doesn't have a lot of money. So he goes to, and let's say he doesn't get, no women want him. And so in an effort to get touched by a woman, he goes to the cheapest massage parlor he can find, which is an Asian massage parlor, and then feels aroused. And then because he's Christian, hates himself and them, and then goes kills them. Those both seem completely believable to me. And so one is created by racism and one is created by, economics.
Yeah.
And I think the police should be able to suss that out. So we'll know. And I'd call it, I wouldn't even say it's 50-50. It's just some percentage and some percentage. Maybe it's 70-30.
There's also, by the way, all of this could be bullshit. He might have a manifesto and he might be part of, he might be a fucking undercover operative in a terrorist group. We have no idea. There's a whole other category.
Yeah, to be fair, his sex thing could be complete bullshit. He could hate Asian people and have targeted them, the massage parlors, because then he gets to use the sex addict excuse. Mm-hmm. He could be even a worse racist than we're saying. I just have no idea. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard him say anything. I haven't found the police say anything. I haven't seen any manifestos or evidence. So all I know is that he shot 8 people and 6 of them were Asian.
Yeah. So I guess I don't want to slow down too much, but what I wish that we had were consistent principles that were called out and how we assessed motive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And obviously there's going to be some gray zone, but what the person says matters, but isn't definitive. The racial identity of the victims matters, but isn't definitive, right? And what I'm hearing and is that whatever the algorithm going on in Trevor Noah's head, the way that he's expressing it is the results speak for themselves. Because the victims are of this thing and because there is a stereotype and because politicians said Wuhan flu, we know. And I'm like, man, I hope that there's more than that adding up in your head to this conclusion.
Probably not in the short, probably not, but I think he would be open to it if pushed on it, if that makes sense. Like, I think he holds that belief that he said, but not
as strongly,
particularly strongly.
Yeah.
But I do think that's the algorithm that's running in his head. And I think when he said it, he meant it and was convinced of it. But I do think he's smart and would be open to softening. Although I do think he would still say it's not 50-50, it's 80-20.
Yeah.
80% racially motivated.
So I wrote, hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.